largest tariff and trade barrier country in the world is China, and they don't have inflation. So these things don't occur the way people suggest they do. This is a reordering of global trade for the benefit of America. These people have all been living in our house. They've been driving our car. They come by and visit, open our fridge, and eat our food whenever they want. They've taken advantage of us.
Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Trade is not the only reason to crack down on China. China steals intellectual property and floods the market with cheap, dangerous knockoffs and allows fentanyl to flow and competes against domestic manufacturers who have to follow different rules. Yes, there are 1.5 billion potential customers in China, but at what cost? And speaking of trade, the U.S. does not use the Suez Canal often, but Europe does, and the Houthis don't care who they shoot at. So is there an American interest in taking the Houthis out? Tom Cotton served in uniform and chairs the Senate Intel Committee. Welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being with us. Tariffs are dominating the conversation, but China doesn't trade fairly even without this current debate. So what should our trade approach be with that country?
Well, good evening, Trey. Thanks for having me on. As it happens, I've just written a book about China, and in no small part about the way they've cheated American workers and businesses for decades. As I argue in 7 Things You Can't Say About China, China has waged an economic world war, especially against the United States, going back several decades. They've subsidized their own companies. They give them all kinds of concessions on taxes and land and regulation. Oftentimes they own these companies, something no American company can compete with fairly. At the same time, they attack our companies. They hack into their systems to steal their intellectual property. They exclude them from the Chinese market. They have forced technology transfers if they admit them to the Chinese market. So what President Trump has long tried to do is level the playing field with communist China. And it's not just the tariffs, as you say, they're also taking important policy steps like closing the so-called de minimis loophole, which allows hundreds of dollars of goods and individual orders to come to the United States from China, undermining American businesses, evading American tax and tariff laws. He closed that as well. So that's just a small first step to making communist China play by the same rules that the rest of the civilized world does.
Chairman, in addition to being a prolific author, you served in uniform. I consider you to be a military expert. I spent some time recently with the president of Finland. He went to college in the U.S., by the way. You probably knew that. They share a long border with Russia. So he's watching the future of NATO, particularly as the U.S. relates to NATO. What do you think the future of NATO is?
Well, I think the future of NATO is strong, especially if our European partners will begin to step up and pull their share of the load again. You have some serious countries like Finland, a new entrant to NATO, who has long taken its responsibility for our common defense seriously because of the threat that Russia poses to it, or Poland or the Baltic nations, for instance. We need all European nations to step up to spend more on their military so they can do more to provide for our common defense. Back during the Cold War, the divide between the United States and the rest of NATO was about 50-50. Since the Cold War, it's trended more towards like 70-30. That's not something that the United States can tolerate anymore when we're called upon, for instance, to support our friends in the Middle East, like Israel, or take on a bunch of rebel outlaws in Yemen who are shooting at our sailors, and most importantly, to deter the threat of communist China in the Pacific. Europe has to do more for our common defense. If they do, the future of NATO is very strong.
All right, I'm going to pick up there, Chairman. There was talk recently about, I think the phrase was bailing Europe out. I don't consider World War I or World War II to be bailing Europe out so much as protecting Western values. The Houthis are enemies of the U.S., not just Europe. Do you think we were right to strike them regardless of how much we may use the Suez Canal?
Oh, no question, Trey. I think the president was totally right. And this is long overdue, as I argued throughout the last 15 months of the Biden administration since the October 7th attacks against Israel. We let our sailors sit on the Red Sea like sitting ducks. These outlaw rebels in Yemen have shot at us dozens and dozens of times. I think our policy should be pretty simple. If you hit us, we're going to hit you back many times harder. But Joe Biden never did that. Donald Trump has done it. He's begun to teach these rebels a lesson. They are a cat's paw of Iran, and there's indications now that Iran is beginning to pull back its support for Yemen as well. So I think it's a long overdue action. I commend President Trump for taking it. We need to make sure we finish the job against these rebels. As he said very clearly, if you stop shooting at us, we'll stop shooting at you. But if you keep shooting at us, we'll hit back many times harder.
All right, before I let you go, and I've only got a couple of seconds, but you are a military intelligence expert. Other than Little League Baseball with your sons, what keeps you up at night? What's an issue that we're not thinking about that the chairman of Senate Intel is?
Well, I think there's a lot of talk in the news about Iran's nuclear program, but I think it's a little too cramped. What really worries me about Iran's nuclear program is that it's married up to a missile program. So if they got nuclear weapons, they wouldn't just be able to attack our friends in Israel or in the Arab world. They could strike the United States in just a matter of a few years, much like North Korea can now as well. So I don't think there's enough focus on the imminent threat that Iran's nuclear program poses, not just to our friends in the Middle East, but to the United States itself.
Chairman Tom Cotton, always love having you on. You are a wealth of information. Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, Trey.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.